Basic trigonometry and inverses. We're going to just do a few examples of how to set up trigonometric functions. For question number 1 here, find the missing side of a right triangle. So we need to decide, are we going to use SO, CA, or TOA? In order to do that, we find the angle we're concerned with, which is the 35 degrees, and then we find the sides we know in relation to that angle. So that would be the opposite side and the hypotenuse. So which one uses opposite and hypotenuse? Opposite, hypotenuse. So we're going to use SO. So that would be the sine of our angle measure equals our opposite, which is the x, over 12. Now we are going to solve for x. So to solve for x, this sine of 35 is a number that can be typed into the calculator, and then obviously 12 is a number, so you multiply by your denominator, and x equals 12 times the sine of 35. And then you can type that into the calculator and get x is approximately equal to 6.88. So however you need to write the answer, that would be what you would do. For problem number 2 here, we have this other triangle, and we find the angle we're concerned with, which is the 40-degree angle, and then we find the sides we know in relation to that angle, and then we can decide SO, CA, or TOA. So y is the adjacent leg, so that would be A, and then 23 is the hypotenuse, so we want to use the one that used the adjacent and the hypotenuse, so that would be the CA. So we write it as cosine of 40 degrees equals adjacent, which is the y, over the hypotenuse, which is the 23. And now we can solve by multiplying by your denominator, solve for the variable. Y equals 23 times the cosine of 40, and then you can type that into your calculator, and you could get approximately 17.62. So however your final answer needs to be written, that's what you would do. Question number 3. Find the z in this case. So we're going to find the angle we know, which is the 25. And then in relation to that angle, we have the opposite side and the adjacent leg. So which one has opposite and adjacent? That would be the TOA. So tangent of my angle measure equals the opposite side, which is the z, divided by the adjacent side, which is the 10. And now we can solve by multiplying by our denominator. And we get z equals 10 times the tangent of 25. Then when you type it into your calculator, you would get z is approximately equal to 4.66. Question number 4, same thing. We find the angle we know, which is the 45 degrees, and we want to find the w. So what are the sides that we know in relation to 45? That would be the 6, which is opposite, the w, which is the hypotenuse. So now when we set this up, opposite and hypotenuse, that is SO. Sine of my angle measure equals opposite 6 over hypotenuse w. This one is a little different, but we still really do the same thing. We're going to multiply by our denominator, which is the w this time. And we have w times the sine of 45. Remember, sine of 45 is a number that you type into your calculator, equals 6. So what we're going to do at this next step is divide by the number. just like we would if the number was 2 or 12 or anything. So we're going to divide by the sine of 45. And we have W equals 6 divided by the sine of 45. And then you can type that into your calculator. And you would get W is approximately equal to 8.49. Example number 5. We're going to be finding the missing angle measure instead of the side length this time, but we start the same way by deciding SOHCAHTOA or TOA, sine, cosine, or tangent. So find your angle that you're looking for, which is the R. What sides do we know in relation to that angle? The 16 and the 22. The 16 is adjacent and the 22 is the hypotenuse. So adjacent and hypotenuse would be the cosine. Cosine of my angle measure, which we don't know, is equal to adjacent 16 over hypotenuse 22. Now on this one, in order to solve this, we need to get in and find the R. So to get rid of this cosine part, we have to do the opposite of cosine, which is the inverse cosine. Do it to both sides. R equals the inverse cosine of 16 over 22. And then we could type it into the calculator. R is approximately equal to the inverse cosine of 16 over 22, approximately 43.3 degrees. Question number 6. Again, we're going to find the angle measure, S. So we need to decide sine, cosine, or tangent. So with regards to the S, we know the opposite side is 5 and the adjacent side is 11. So opposite and adjacent would be the TOA. Tangent of my angle, S, is equal to opposite 5 over adjacent 11. And if I want to get in and solve for the S, I need to do the inverse tangent of both sides. That would cancel those out, leaving me with just the S equals the inverse tangent of 5 over 11. And then if you need to solve that exactly or approximately, type it into the calculator, which would give you approximately 24.4 degrees. This next one is a word problem. Suppose you are building a handicap ramp. The angle of elevation is 13 degrees, and the vertical rise of the ramp needs to be 4 feet. How long is the ramp? So you really need to understand your picture on this one. So the ramp is the thing that's at the angle. So that is the ramp. The angle of elevation, elevation means up, goes up. So that would be this angle right here. That angle is 13 degrees. And then our vertical rise has to be 4 feet. So that would make the up side here to be 4 feet. And we need to find the length of the ramp. So we just need to decide how we're going to set this up now. So we find the angle we know, which is the 13. And then we find the sides we know in relation to that. So opposite is the 4. Hypotenuse is the ramp. So SOHCAHTOA or TOA. Opposite hypotenuse would be the sine. sine of my angle measure is equal to opposite over my hypotenuse, which is the ramp. And then we're going to solve for the ramp length by multiplying by my denominator. Ramp times the sine of 13 equals 4. Sine of 13 is a number, so we can divide by that number. And r equals 4 divided by the sine of 13. And then we type that into the calculator. The ramp needs to be approximately 17.78 feet. All right, for this last problem, we have another word problem. You are standing on a cliff looking at a bear in the valley. The angle of depression to the bear is 48 degrees. You know the cliff is 50 feet tall. How far is the bear from the base of the cliff? So here's our picture. You have you on the cliff, the bear over here. The cliff is 50 feet tall. And you know that you want to find how far the bear is from the base of the cliff. So you want to find this length right here. Now, think about what we have here. It's actually a rectangle, which makes all the opposites the same. So this over here is 50. And this up here is x. Now we need to deal with that angle. The angle of depression from you to the bear. So depression means going down. So the angle of depression is this angle right there. 48 degrees. Once you figure that out, then you can decide SOHCA or TOA and solve. So it looks like we have the angle of 48, the opposite side of 50, and the adjacent side of x. So opposite and adjacent would use the TOA. So that means tangent of 48 degrees equals opposite 50 over adjacent x, and we are solving for x. So multiply by your denominator. X equals, let's start this way, x times the tangent of 48 equals 50. And then we're going to divide by the number, which is the tangent part of 48. And x is approximately equal to 50 divided by the tangent of 48 degrees, which is 45.02. So about 45 feet away. That's how far the bear is from the cliff, about 45 feet. So that's all I got for a few extra examples on basic trigonometry and how to set up your sine, cosine, and tangent functions. If you need extra help, let me know, or check out a few extra videos.